Hey everyone, welcome to Underground Scholars Winter 21 podcast series, a podcast about elevating our formerly incarcerated and system impacted scholars' stories. You'll get the chance to listen to our members and advocates supporting USI 3 pillars through recruitment, retention, and advocacy. My name is Marisa Lopez, but you can call me Ritz. I'll be your host for Winter 21 USI podcast series. In today's episode, we have Humberto Beto Flores is a first-generation college student from England Empire. He transferred from Riverside City College and holds a bachelor's in sociology from UCLA. While at UCLA, he was a member of Million Dollar Hoods and the Underground Scholars Initiative. He is currently a second-year PhD student in the Department of Sociology at UC Riverside, studying legal cynicism. Specifically, his work focuses on policing practices that marginalize racialized minorities communities in the England Empire. So let's give it up for Beto.
My name is Humberto Flores. I also go by Beto Flores, and growing up, I went by Sharky. Um, I'm born and raised in the Inland Empire. I transferred from Riverside City College into UCLA in 2017 and began my PhD program at UC Riverside in 2019.
Dang, that's what's up. Just flex everything right now, dude. Drop anything you gotta drop. This is a great chance for everyone to listen. And anyone out here trying to hire folks, this is where we're elevating our scholars' voices and dropping their resume on this podcast. So I want to ask you, how did you get to know about USI? How did you hear about it? Was it before UCLA, in UCLA?
Yeah, so it's really interesting the way the world works. I feel like it was full circle. So in the summer of 2017, I was admitted to UC Berkeley and UCLA. Well, I wasn't admitted in the summer, but I went to visit these universities, and I was gonna go to Berkeley, so I went out there and took a trip with my mom, and I ended up stumbling in the office, and they actually handed me a flyer about the underground scholars, and then I went home, put that folder away, totally forgot about it. Didn't remember about the organization or anything. But during my first quarter at UCLA, Javier told me about the underground scholars. So I showed up to the meeting, and that's how I became involved with the organization. And when I graduated from UCLA, I went back home to my mom's house, and I was looking through that folder, and in that folder I had an underground scholars brochure and a few of the brochures that you know organizations I eventually became involved with, and flyers of faculty that I became involved with. So it was real interesting the way that experience came back full circle, and it's interesting because I had that feeling again. So I majored in sociology as an undergrad at UCLA, and I semi-minored in education. I was about a course from completing the minor, but I didn't complete it. But I was reading a lot of sociology faculty readings at UCLA, and I'm currently working with some of those faculty. So it's just again coming back full circle.
That's such a trip. I was like, it's kind of like when those movies, like everything falls into place. Life is mysterious.
Right.
That binder, you didn't get to it until you went to visit your mom again.
Yeah.
Man, and it seems that like one of the things I've been hearing a lot in the past previous podcasts is like Javier plays a really significant role in all these stories. Like I hear his name, like, oh, I saw him. He reached out to me. He started talking. How did you feel like, or how did he approach you like when he started talking to you about USI?
Yeah. I mean, he's good at identifying people. I didn't have a community at UCLA, but then again, I was new. So he approached me. I was just wearing a flannel, and then I guess that marked an identification for him. Coming from the communities that we come from, and not being that much people at UCLA like that. So he approached me. He told me a little bit about the organization. I was a bit unsure whether to go or not, but I ended up attending, and I just really liked the community that we built there. And to this day, I mean, right after undergrad, I applied to the PhD program, and now I have a community at UCR. So I didn't know much people here as well. And I'm originally from the Inland Empire, um, like 25 minutes from the university, and I have never visited it, so I didn't have a community. But being that I was part of USI when I came in, I automatically had that community.
Folks, if you're able to see Beto right now, he's definitely repping, the city he comes from. He's wearing right now the black cap that says England Empire with like some nice font. Um, and I think this is what's very important versus listening and watching a video. You get to definitely see hear his voice and definitely really resonate a lot. Like this space feels like home. Um, I wanted to ask you, like, what are your highlights of being part of USI? Like, what are the moments you cherish? What are some moments that you miss? Because I know there's still USI out there and UCR, but just share about like your UCLA USI highlights.
Right. I mean, the highest. There's a lot of good memories that come to mind when I think of USI at UCLA. Um, and as I mentioned, just the community building in general. I mean, I would look forward to our meetings, you know, back before COVID, and meeting every Thursday with the underground scholars, and also that being my last day of classes. Many of the times after the meetings, we would go hang out at different people's dorms or apartments. So those are memories that I cherish to this day. Um, in addition to that, there's a lot of events that we did, from uh, like transfer workshops for formerly incarcerated individuals to the Just Culture event. I mean, that was a significant part of uh, my experience there, being able to take community members as well as family to raise awareness for the formerly incarcerated population. And actually, that was about the second time that my family came to campus. So it was just another opportunity for them to come and check out the campus a little bit. So I would say my favorite memories were, uh, just the community building that include the meetings, just culture, and I was able to be part of that event again as alumni. Even though it was online this time, but even that was still great.
I know I'm kind of like tripping out right now because I feel like the way I met you was before I got involved with USI. I remember because Angie and I lived in the cooperative housing, and you sat there in breakfast, and I was like, I saw you wear the USI logo hat or shirt, something like that, and I was like, hey, what is that, man? Like I said, oh, what's USI? And then like you looked at me like this kid, like, oh, it's USI. And then you kind of told me what it stood for, and I was like, oh, okay. And yeah, man, I kind of just started following people who like was all about
Right? It goes back
USI.
to that. It goes back to
Plus,
that full circle.
yeah, goes back to that flyer. um, man, I wanted to ask you, like, you had any other chance to go to any 1,000 plus student orgs on campus? What made you just stay? Like, I feel like yeah, you can say community support. Like, I want to ask you, can you find that anywhere else? Like,
Um, nah, I think the underground scholars provides a certain type of community, like a relatable community. Again, coming from the communities that we come from, many of the times hyper police, many of the times a lot of folks are incarcerated in these communities, um, you know, communities with low educational attainment rates, etc. And so, I mean, I didn't really give other orgs a chance, once I became involved, I just uh, like basically became friends with the people there. Later on, even lived with the people there as roommates, So, I mean, I didn't really give any other organizations the chance because they didn't really catch my attention like that.
I want to ask you now, is there any way you being involved with USI kind of connects with the work you're doing?
Yeah. Um, so I study policing, and that is, the step before incarceration. Um, and I mean, not directly, but it's within the same line of work, you know. And I've always been interested in incarceration. I mean, uh, we have a center here called the Robert Presley Center, and recently I was able to create or kind of help create a scholarship for formerly incarcerated people and system impacted. And it's not a significant amount of money. It's like $500 a quarter, but it's something, you know. So it continues to be part of my life and academic and professional personal life.
I had to quickly Google this, man, because I was like, damn, I gotta share this with people. You get me? Like where they can look it up, because I feel like
All right, so informational break right now. Um, so Beto mentioned UCR Robert Presley Center of Crime and Justice Studies. Just to tell you a little bit about who they are, what they do. It's a center that focuses on justice and criminology research, such as like policymaking, criminal justice leaders, and rely on applied theoretical evidence-based studies produced by center affiliates to inform their practices. So if you're, looking into what Robert Presley Center of Crime and Justice Studies are, feel free to Google it and put UCR next to it, and you'll find more about it. So let's get back to Beto.
tell us one more time what are what's your
Right.
dissertation about? Uh, what did you specifically apply at UCR for your PhD
Yeah.
program?
So as I mentioned, I'm in the PhD program, and there's like multiple phases. And since I came in as an undergrad, I'm on phase one of it, completing phase one, which focuses on the master's thesis. Um, so I'm currently working on my thesis at the moment, and then I'll be expanding that into the dissertation. But what my thesis focuses on is something called legal cynicism, and it's basically, you know, what people viewing the law and agents of its enforcement as illegitimate and unresponsive. So I use basically like two theoretical frameworks. One is intersectionality, and the other one is called legal estrangement. And basically, legal estrangement has what I use as three tenets, right? One of them being procedural injustice, so how people are marginalized through like negative interactions with law enforcement. The second one is vicarious marginalization, which is basically being like experiencing policing through others, right? So it may be your father, a partner, you know, just other people in your life. And then the last tenet is structural exclusion, and that's basically policies and policing practices that account for marginalization. And I look at this with, like I said, an intersectional lens, so how it varies, you know, by race and gender. So that's basically what my thesis is looking at. And I'm doing 20 interviews. I actually have my last interview on Wednesday, so I'm wrapping that up. And I'm also and I'm in the process of getting the interviews transcribed by research assistants, and I'm also simultaneously coding. So it's a lot of work.
Damn, dude, I'm hella mind blown right now. I was kind of like, all right, let me take some notes right now. You're doing a lot like in research topic, but I think that's definitely necessary research for folks to understand this. Um, Let me give it a moment because I need to digest this information. Like, because I'm an undergrad
Mhm.
student, so for you to kind of give me a clear point of when it comes to dissertation, there's different phases,
Yeah.
tenants. You use another word, and I'm still trying to like digest it myself. But I feel like this kind of gives folks who are just looking into like PhD programs, like how does research look like. Did you do any research in your undergrad that helped you prepare you for your graduate
Yeah, I
school?
did. And actually, that's what motivated my current research. So I was part of the Million Dollar Hoods research project led by Kelly Lado Hernandez. And that and my experience with law enforcement growing up both account for my motivation to do this research. So being part of Million Dollar Hoods, I transcribed there. I transcribed for the project. Um, I, I worked in the archives as well. I did a few things. So that kind of modeled like my research and sparked my interest within policing. I also did a project called, a program called EFT, Educators for Tomorrow, and in that project is kind of a independent study, and I did a project on hip hop education.
Dang, Beto, hella insightful. So he just shared with us two things: Educators for Tomorrow, EFT at UCLA, and Million Dollar Hoods. Let's start off with EFT, which is Educators for Tomorrow. Educators for Tomorrow is a program dedicated to assisting new generation of educators who are committed to academic excellence, access, opportunity, equity, and underrepresented and underserved communities. These programs seek students who wish to pursue careers in educational research in the following areas within K through 16, y'all. Look at the amazing work they're doing. Another org that Beto was mentioning called Million Dollar Hoods. Million Dollar Hoods maps and documents the human and physical costs of mass incarceration in Los Angeles and beyond. It was launched in September 2016. The Million Dollar Hoods website began by hosting digital maps to show like how much it spent per neighborhood on incarceration in LA County. And then just over 2 years, MDH or Million Dollar Hoods has emerged as a university-based, community-driven mixed methods research project that deploys not only data mapping but also rapid response reports, oral history archives, and so much more. So it's there to kind of largely or extracted from largely like Black and Latinx, Indigenous, and working class communities since 1970s. So they're doing amazing work, folks. So definitely check them out. And let's get back to Beto's story.
Part of it. I wanted to ask you for the Million Dollar Hoods. Was there any other USI member involved
Yeah,
with that? I guess is it cohort? How does that work?
right. Yeah, so there was actually several USI members. It's, I mean, it's not really a cohort thing. Uh, it kind of works that way, in that people graduate and then new folks come in. But no, there was several USI members involved while I was there, such as Jovan, he already graduated. Um, Luce was there. Andrew, I believe Michelle's currently part of Million Dollar Hoods. So it's they try to include formerly incarcerated people and system impacted, which is why they reached out to the underground scholars and if they wanted to join, which
Yeah.
gave us an opportunity.
Um, I don't. How did you feel like knowing that you came from USI and you're able to like tap into these, openings, research, um, opportunities? How did that make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, it made me feel good because, like you said, there's a lot of opportunities that come with being involved with underground scholars, and it comes with like doing research for Million Dollar Hoods, and not just like for free, but also getting paid. Doing stipends. There's like job opportunities. There's community, like you said, when you go to another UC. So it just felt great, and these are like benefits that come with being involved, even though they weren't benefits I anticipated. I identify as system impacted and an advocate. You know, um,
But I wanted to ask, did you know what system impacted meant before coming to USI, or was it a word that you learned during USI?
yeah, system impacted is something I heard about while I was involved with USI, which is why every time like people use it or like whether verbally or like in the writing, I tell them to expand on it. I feel like um, criminal justice system impacted kind of um, like captures that more.
I didn't really know how to process everything.
Yeah,
And I feel like with USI, I found like a whole different identity. And that's why I kind of wanted to ask you, because I feel like it's crazy, because in a way it's like therapy coming to these meetings, because you kind of like cope, or you kind of pick up like past traumas that allow you to process as a group. But I feel like everyone at USI just gets it. You get me? You bring something up and people start laughing about it, like, oh yeah, like we've been through that. And it's
yeah,
just like, oh wait, you internalize it. You're like,
right.
dang, I'm not the only one. Like,
Past traumas as well as like even like school therapy. Like things that are going on within the campus that you're able to like vent about and people also relate. A lot of us are like first generation college students and all that, so it is like very therapeutic, like you said.
Yeah, and the good thing is that I don't even have to explain myself. You get me? Like,
Yeah.
like versus folks who like don't understand like our situations. They're kind of like asking more questions, and I'm just like it can go both ways. It can be triggering where I'm like, dude, you know what you asked is very offensive. But
Yeah.
also like I look at it the other end, like they don't know, you get me? Like, and I can't blame them for that.
Hmm.
Um and I want to ask you, like, how do you feel about that? Because you do a lot of work when it comes to like hyper policing, right?
Hmm.
How do you feel about when folks are kind of just like not go against your work, but are not understanding the work you're doing? How do you kind of break it down to them?
uh that's a good question. It's difficult because there's a lot of people who I've spoken to, and a lot of them are against like the work we do. They're against, I mean, they're for law and order and all that. You know what I mean? um but I kind of, I don't engage with a lot of those people, only because my time is precious, and I don't have, like, I have a million things I have to be doing than to be like trying to educate people on that. And many of the times I take the time to talk to them, if it's somebody I care about. Um, and a lot of them understand, but also many of the times it's just not something I engage with because I don't have the time.
I like how you said it because it's kind of like you saying you're building boundaries, you get me? Like for
Yeah.
yourself. Um, because a lot of the work we do is a lot of emotional labor.
Hmm.
You get me?
Yeah, and it's like
So
people want you to explain stuff to them, and like this is things that they could be. Themselves on. So yeah, I agree.
yeah. Last question for folks who are listening to this who are formerly incarcerated system impacted,
Mm.
right? They're currently at community college or looking into grad school, and everything's virtual, man. Like I'm pretty sure you've already expressed it how hard it is to like be doing things online. It's not in person. What sort of motivation would you like send them? Share with them like support.
Right. I would say, um, if you take one thing from this, it's don't be afraid to reach out. Like reach out to people, reach out to myself, reach out to any underground scholar, reach out to faculty, and get that help. Because as I previously mentioned, many of the times, be us being first generation college students, we're afraid to ask for stuff, to reach out to people. But something I've noticed, while being in my program, is that a lot of these white people and like these people who have parents with PhDs and educations, like they're not afraid to reach out, and that's why they get what they want, because they're not like, they demand it. So I would recommend like you reach out. And For example, like there may be people that want to help you. Like for myself, I got help when I was applying to programs, to grad programs. So I pay that forward. Um, and last uh, this fall, I actually created a PhD support group. So and it was actually a few underground scholar members here that I kind of was helping, apply to PhD programs, and I reached out to other PhD students to help me with it. So yeah, there's always people willing to help. Just reach out.
During the last months, our communities have been vigorously discussing and taking steps to make sure that our schools are eliminating barriers and providing the support and opportunities that will ensure the empowerment and success of students of color and other marginalized groups. We are here sharing this statement to acknowledge our brothers and sisters who are currently incarcerated. We also want to acknowledge our formerly incarcerated brothers and sisters who have not yet shared their stories. We're hoping to elevate our Black, Indigenous, people of color, formerly incarcerated students hustle. So, interested in collaborating, having general questions, please feel free to reach out our program's email at undergroundscholars@saonet.ucla.edu. That's all for now, folks. But I'll see you in the next episode of Underground Scholars.